I used to think gaming just isn't what it used to be. Games felt bigger, multiplayer was more exciting, and new releases felt like actual events. Somewhere along the way, it felt like we lost something. But then I realized, ask 10 different gamers when the golden age of gaming was, and you'll probably get 10 different answers. Which made me wonder, if everyone thinks gaming peaked during their childhood, was there ever actually a golden age at all? If I were to ask you when you think gaming was the best, what would you say? If you're younger, you'd probably say right now or within the last 5 years. If you're around my age, you'd probably say something like the Wii or Xbox 360, depending on what platform you grew up with. And if you're older than me, you might say the N64 or Super Nintendo. The point is, every person has a different answer, but so does every generation. This is because people's answers tend to be tied to what they grew up with. Now, having all of these different opinions of when the pinnacle was means that they can't all be objectively true. So why is it that everyone thinks they experienced gaming's peak? You may remember playing games when you were younger and enjoying every single one and thinking every game was the best game ever. But when you take a closer look, that isn't the full scope of what happened. Our memory isn't a recording of absolutely everything that happened while we were doing the things we enjoyed. Instead, we remember the highlights instead of the averages. If you think really hard about it, you may start to remember frustrating mechanics or just plain bad games. A good example of this is in the late 2000s, you probably remember Halo 3, BioShock, Call of Duty, and Super Mario Bros. But what you don't remember is the dozens of mediocre movie tie-in and bargain bin games that came out around the same time. This is just one example of how nostalgia can blind us, so to speak. We remember the music, sounds, and even menus because our brains compress the years of games, both good and bad, into the good parts. You may be thinking that the answer to the question of why everyone has different opinions on gaming's peak is that simple: nostalgia. But nostalgia isn't the whole story. Ask pretty much anyone from almost any generation other than young kids because they are still actively experiencing one era of gaming, if games are changing for the worse. Almost everyone will say yes for a variety of reasons. It could be that some older gamers disliked the advent of online multiplayer, others disliked and maybe still dislike DLC, microtransactions, and now live service games. Every generation sees something new and assume it's ruining gaming. But when you think about it, some of these things that were controversial at the time have produced a lot of amazing games. Gaming would be a lot different without multiplayer. Some games would be missing huge parts of them if it weren't for good DLCs, like the Booster Course Pass for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, for example. That doubled the size of the game almost 8 years later for less than half the cost of the base game. Now, this isn't me saying that every game needs a $40 DLC and be incomplete on release. That is just a lazy excuse for a cash grab, and I despise it. Also, microtransactions are bad, but I digress. Gaming evolves faster than us gamers can adapt to big changes. It can feel weird to see something we hold so dear change dramatically in real time. Another big thing is, we compare today's entire industry to the best moments from the past. A big example of this is game prices. Now, to be clear, I do not want every game to cost $100. I would prefer if games could be more reasonably priced like indie games. But everyone is freaking out about the prices we have now. But when you look at game prices for the SNES as an example, the average game cost $120 adjusted for inflation. And games at the time were much smaller and less advanced, and people were paying more than we are now for new releases. This goes to show that we experience today's industry flaws in real time, but we experience the past after years of filtering out the bad from our memories. Even with all this covered, maybe we're still asking the wrong question to get to the bottom of this mystery. To be clear, the games did matter, but that's not really what our nostalgia cares most about. What mattered equally, if not more, was having endless free time to play, friends online every night, no job, no real responsibilities. We just had the time to fully immerse ourselves in games and enjoy them however we wanted. But almost more importantly, we had the luxury of spending our time however we wanted. Just remember the feeling of getting a new game for summer vacation and playing it a ton, or maybe you and your friends all got a game during the school year and you would talk about it at school and then play it as soon as you got home after thinking about it all day. And this doesn't even consider the fact that most game genres were new to you, so it felt like a whole new discovery, which was magical. Nowadays, you're pretty hard-pressed to find a completely new experience. You aren't just nostalgic for the games, you're nostalgic for who you were and what life was like when you were playing them. Right now, kids are making memories with the games that are currently out. They're discovering games they will, and maybe even we, will call classics. 20 years from now, they'll defend games that we are currently criticizing. They'll remember playing games with their friends, not patch notes. They'll remember the excitement and anticipation of a new game, not the review scores. Today's gaming landscape has incredible variety, even if we struggle to see it sometimes. And no matter if we want to accept it or not, every era of gaming creates unforgettable experiences for someone. Maybe the golden age of gaming isn't something we recognize while we're living through it, because we're too busy looking backward. What is your favorite era of gaming, and is it the era you grew up with or not? I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you haven't already, as it helps the channel out a ton. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and good gaming to you all.